All right. My voice better not sound like a robot. So I mentioned in the last podcast that I was going to do a live stream of an Arch install. I ended up getting a sinus infection, and that did not happen. Instead, what I did was I went through with the installation, I screen captured the entire thing, and then I went back later on and recorded a commentary over top of that. So that's what this video is. If you have a AMD CPU and Nvidia graphics card, then I feel like you're going to have a similar experience to what I did if you follow these steps. I would encourage you to put any comments that you may have in the comment section of this video. That's Crowbar Kernel Panic, the podcast at the intersection of Linux and gaming. We already started working on some more Arch videos, so please stay tuned for that. Listen to the next podcast, subscribe to this channel, and like this video. Thank you. And we're off. So this is the initial boot. You make your Arch installation thumb drive just the same as you would any other Linux distribution. The main difference being that if you've never installed Arch before, it could be pretty surprising whenever that first boot comes up, because the only interface you're greeted with is a simple command prompt, which is the most intimidating thing about Arch, is this installation process. I think what you'll find is that you're doing the same steps that you would do in installing any OS, only you're having to manually do it, which means that you're getting to learn a little bit more about the process as you're doing it. I basically follow the ArchWiki, the installation guide, religiously through this whole thing. There's a few variations. I'll try to point those out. But the first thing they ask you to do in the installation guide is to check that you're on the internet. So they want you to do an IP link and then ping archlinux.org. Make sure that you can get a ping. In my case here, I was actually plugged directly in, so I knew that I was going to get a network connection. But I have done Arch installations in the past where you need to use Wi-Fi, so there is actually instructions on how to do that on the ArchWiki. It's not directly on the installation guide page, but they have a link to it from there. And I'll make sure to point that out in the notes to this video. It is a little more complicated to do it over Wi-Fi, but the installation process after you get past that is the same, and then there's just a few more steps to make sure that your Wi-Fi works again once you boot up for the first time. The next thing they ask you to do is time date CTL set NTP true. This is setting your NTP time. And then from here, I think we're basically getting into the actual installation. So with an LSBLK here, I can see that my current partition table on my NVMe drive, which is where I want to install Arch, has another OS on it, my previous install of Pop! OS. So I'm going to use gdisk to wipe that out. So gdisk and then the path to the drive. We use question mark to see the menu. What we're looking for is not here, so we're going to go to extra functionality, which is X. And then what we want to do is we want to destroy this GPT table. So that looks like it is option Z at the bottom. It's going to ask us to confirm. Confirm again. All right, we should have a blank NVMe drive, which we do. So the next thing we want to do is we're gonna build the partition table that we need now. Essentially, so we're gonna use gdisk and then the path to the drive that you want to put it on, and we're gonna need. I do a pretty basic. I don't separate my home and my root directory, and so we're only gonna need 3 partitions here. We're gonna need one for. Well, first off, we need to do N for new partition. We're gonna pick the first sector, and then the next sector is how big we want this first partition to be. This one needs to be pretty small, so it's going to be 1024 M. This is going to be for our EFI. This is our boot section, and the hex code. So after you pick the first sector and then the last sector for each partition, you have to pick what the hex code, the type of drive it's going to be. And so for EFI, I'm trying to find it here, but it's actually EF00. Then we're going to do another. We're going to go ahead and do our second partition. So in, and then we're going to pick the next available sector, and this one is going to be our swap. So in this case, I made it 6 gigs. I don't actually know what it should be. I've seen so many different recommendations. I've done as high as 16 before. I did 6 here. I don't know if that's right, but it seems to work. 8200 is the code for swap. And then we've got to do our third and last partition. The last one ever. We're going to pick the next available sector. And then this time we're going to go ahead and go to the last sector. So just hit enter. And then 8300, it's already there as the default enter. This is our Linux file system. So this is what the root, our home directory, is going to live here. It's going to ask us to verify when we W to write and then verify. All right, so now if we run lsblk, we should see that we have the 3 partitions that we just made. In my case here, they rounded my 6 gigs down to 5. I'm pretty sure that's just a rounding. It's just the way it's displayed in BLK. So now we have our partitions, but we don't have our file system. So we're going to use mkfs to make our file system. So mkfs.ext4 will make an ext4 file system, which that's what we want for our root partition. It's got to go through. This one will take the longest. The next one we're going to do is swap, and it'll go like really fast. I've always used ext4. It's usually the default in most, and unless you're using Red Hat or something that has a particular file system, there's lots of fancy ones out there you could try, and they are all available to read on the ArchWiki. But ext4 has never let me down. I just always pick that one. I couldn't even tell you why, other than it just seems to work for me. So next we're going to do our swap, and this is mk swap space, and then the path to your swap partition. I'm trying to figure out what to type here. There we go. All right, so now I constantly go back to LSBLK. It just helps me ground myself and like figure out where I'm at in the installation. So next up, we need to mount our root. So what we're going to do is say mount space the path to our root partition. In this case, it's 1p3, and then /mnt. So now we have our root partition mounted at /mnt. Okay, so now that we have our root mounted, we need to mount our boot folder, which is that EFI folder that we were talking about earlier, or partition, sorry, not folder. And so we want that to be in our root of the system. So we're going to say mk dir make directory /mnt/boot. And now we want to mount that boot partition to that folder we just made. So we're going to say mount space path to the partition and then space mnt/boot. We're going to turn our swap on. So that's just swap on and then the path to the swap partition we made, which in my case is 2. Do our LSBLK again. We can see now we've got out in the mount points. We can see where we mounted everything and that we turned swap on, and this looks beautiful. Okay, next up we get to actually install some system files. So we're going to use packstrap. And we want to point packstrap to our /mnt folder. So packstrap /mnt, and we want it to install base, Linux, and Linux firmware. This is going to install the basics of our file system. And so right here, boys, you're doing it. You are installing Arch Linux. Doing big things. You're an Arch bro now, by the way. All right, that finished up. I think the next thing the ArchWiki suggests is to generate your fstab. But if we cd to our /mnt folder and just do a list there, we can see the packages that it installed. And yeah, our root is now at our /mnt mount point. So the way we generate fstab is by genfstab. -U /mnt. We're going to cat that at the end of /mnt/etc/fstab. This will generate everything we have mounted right now, everything that's needed for the file system. It'll go ahead and generate that. Now we get to actually use Arch chroot /mnt to actually mount our new file system. Hooray! So we need to work on our locales now. So they already have all of the different zone infos. They have all that stuff on the installation. So what you need to do is do ln-sf, and then it's going to be user share zone info, and then you need to pick your zone info based on where you live. For me, it's America, New York. And then where we want to link that to is to /etc/local time. We're going to set our hardware clock, HW clock -- system. Oh, I'm sorry. -- systo HC. So now that we have that, the next step in the wiki wants us to do our local gen, which this is where I realized I didn't have VI installed. So I did VI etc local gen, only to find out that I don't have VI, and I did a pacman-s vim out of habit, and which will come back and bite me later on. I'll end up I should have just installed VI here. I don't know why I got fancy and said I'll just install vim instead of VI. I ended up having to install VI later because of VI sudo. But anyway, so you go through this file and you find your locale, and for me that is ENUS. I never can remember this. I have to look at it. ENUS UTF-8 is what it is for my locale. Go ahead and give that a right quit. And we can try our gen locale command again, and this time it should work. Locale gen. Locale-gen. Generation complete. The next steps ask us to edit the etc locale.conf file, which does not exist. You have to make the file and then put in, it has this on the installation guide, what you should put in here. But it is all caps LANG equals, and then lowercase en_us dot UTF-8. Go ahead and put in our host name, just etc/host name. Then whatever you put in here will be your host name. I do something pretty boring. I think I just say Arch Desktop. And my laptop is, guess what? Arch Laptop. Because if anyone is ever snooping my network, I want them to know that I run Arch. Go ahead and set our root password. Okay, so now we need to install our bootloader, which I had to look at another video to know how to do, because they actually don't clarify this completely on the installation guide. But I always go back to GloriousEggroll's 2018 installation guide, and I basically just copied what he did. So we start by saying bootctl install, and it goes ahead and puts crucial files in that directory that we made earlier. And then we're going to create this file. It's a pretty long path, so bear with me. It's vim. Well, we're using vim to create the file. /boot /loader /entries /arch.conf. That wasn't as long as I remembered it. I thought it was way longer than that. All right, so in this file, we're going to add these lines. I'll have them in the notes to this video. Again, I got this from the GloriousEggroll's video. Thank you very much. I'll allow for typing time, but I'll read it all out at the end. So the first line, title Arch Linux, and then Linux VM linux Notice the Z, and then initrd /init ramfs. Dash Linux. .img. Go ahead and pause the video, get that. There's some other things you need to add to this file. If you are on Intel, I'm on AMD. And I'll have that also in the notes to this. And GloriousEggroll also addresses that in his video, which I'll link in these notes. Now, we need to echo another line to that file. And I actually tried this a few times. But bonus points if you can watch what I'm typing and see what I got wrong. But again, I got this from GloriousEggroll's video. I just mistyped something based on the notes. I took notes from a previous Arch install. I basically installed Arch and took notes so that I could make this video properly. And yeah, I copied my notes wrong. So we're going to say echo, and then it is going to be in quotations, options, space root equals part UID equals $. Just look at the show notes. So I want to point out here that if you're copying this command from my notes or from GloriousEggroll's, or just looking at the screen and typing it, however you're doing it, that /dev there should be the path to your root directory, to your root partition. So I ran the command, and then I looked in this file, and then sure enough, the wrong thing is here. It just piped in what I typed, and it'll make sense why, but I did like a little, I sped up the video so that I could go through. This is my troubleshooting process where I'm frantically trying to figure out what I did wrong. What could I have typed wrong? What? I'm a Linux genius. How did I screw this up? No, maybe it was this $. No, let's try that. Yeah, for sure it was the $. That was the problem. That had to be the problem. So I hit enter, and what did it do? Did it work? No, it didn't work. It still didn't work. It wasn't the $. That wasn't the problem. Oh no, what could be the issue? In the comments right now, post if you see the issue. Go ahead and post it. Post it in the comments. And I'll go ahead and tell you. I'll go ahead and tell you. I know what I did wrong. I think this is where I figured it out. Yep. /dev/SDA3. That was the drive from my laptop. So I had that typed in my notes, and I didn't change it. I just copied letter for letter exactly what I had in my notes. So be sure that you choose your root drive, whatever your root partition is going to be here. In my case, it should have been the NVMe drive, the third one. So now we run that command, we go back and look at the file, and voila, we have our UUID in the file now. So this is what it should look like. You should see options root, and then part UUID, and then your UUID for your root partition. All right, so now we're getting to install some things. This might be the first time we've used Pacman. Oh no, we used it to install Vim earlier. So Pacman-S, what are we going to install? What are we installing? Okay, Network Manager. Classic. Not found. Capitalize the... Yeah, no caps. If I were a real professional, I would have done all this in the same line. The next thing we install is DHCP CD. I just want both of these things enabled just to make sure that my network comes up whenever I reboot. We're going to install base devel. And again, we could have just in one line said Pacman-S space base devel space network manager space DHCP CD. But I just, as I was recording this video, I was just winging it, guys. All right, we're going to try to reboot. And this is where we all pray to the penguin gods that our kernel will be blessed and that our Wi-Fi will be strong and that our system will boot. And it booted. So we'll have to log in as root here because we never set up a user account. We have all of our basic stuff installed. At this point, you could remove your thumb drive, and it'll boot to this every single time. But this is not a very good, it's not much fun to use, right? So we want to install a graphical interface. We'll at least get you that far before the end of the video. Why don't we go ahead and start by making our user accounts? So we're going to say user add -m -G. We're going to go ahead and put us in what we know will be our pseudo group, which is will -s lowercase /bin/bash. This is for our terminal we're going to use. And then Bo, that's my username. So now we have a user account. It's in the will group, and it is using a bash as its shell. We should probably go ahead and change the password to Bo. But let's make a home directory first. So that is make home dir helper. mk home dir dash, oh, nope, it is not. it is underscore. So that's not make hamburger helper. That's make home dir helper. MK home dir underscore helper space and the name of the user you want to make the home directory for. And then we just did a password, passwd space, the name of the user you want to change the password for, and changed our password. So now we have our working user account. He is a member of the will group, although we have not done vidsuo to actually give him sudo access. We have not given that group access to sudo, but we know that we will. So we want to turn on our DHCP CD to make sure we have a network connection, an IP address. So we'll start it and then enable it. Systemctl enable DHCP CD. And we'll do the same thing for Network Manager. All right, so we got a user account, we got network. Our user's still not a sudoer, but we're going to go ahead and start installing the stuff we need for our graphical interface. So we'll start with, actually, this was an experiment. I wanted to see if I installed Nvidia, if it would also include the Xorg packages, which it does. So you can basically just begin by saying pacman-s, in my case, Nvidia, but whatever graphics driver that you need. All of that is on the wiki, and start from there. It will install the dependencies along with that. All right, that took no time. So now we have our graphical drivers. We have X installed. We need a desktop environment. Here you can install GNOME, you can install XFCE, you can install whatever you want. We're going to go with Cinnamon, just because that's the one that I've always loved. So we're going to go with GDM and Cinnamon. Now, note that GDM on Arch, because it's installing the latest, will install Pipewire. So you're going to be getting Pipewire. If that is a problem, then go ahead and install LightDM instead of GDM, which won't have that Pipewire dependency. I don't think most people would notice the difference. I've kind of experimented back and forth with Pipewire. LightDM also has a configuration file that you have to set up, and that is also in the ArchWiki. But with GDM, you don't need to do that. You can just install it. We're going to install the Mate terminal because I can't tell you how many times I've installed Arch, I've installed a desktop, and then I've rebooted my system, only to figure out that I don't have a stinking terminal installed. So don't forget that. go ahead and set GDM to enable. All right, so now we have graphics drivers, X installed, a desktop environment, and GDM. We should be able to reboot and get a login screen. Again, I light candles in front of my penguin shrine. Hope that they bless my drive with a login screen, and we have a login screen. Nice. Sorry for the blurry graphics. This is I'm capturing this screen from one computer to another, and I'm using a very knockoff USB HDMI capture card. I need to get a better one so I can make higher quality videos in the future. But one of the first things I do here is install OBS so that I can just capture the screen directly on the device. So we have a desktop. Yes, we have a desktop, a very basic one, but we have one. That's all that matters. We have it. It's what matters. And we have a terminal. That's what you call planning ahead. But we did not give our user account sudo rights. So now we're going to use vi sudo. And this is the moment. This is when I realized that I did not have vi installed. So I went ahead and installed vi. I should have just done it earlier. But this, we can vi sudo will let you edit your sudoers file. But it's smarter. It's smart enough to not let you screw anything up, or at least not detrimentally screw anything up. And all we want to do is we want to remove the comment before the will all equals all. This means that the will group can run sudo, but they need to type in a password. If you uncomment the one below that says no password, then it means the same thing, only you don't even have to type a password. I like typing the password, not really for security, but just because it gives me a second chance to double think whatever it is I'm doing. All right, we'll go ahead and install the Nvidia settings. This is so that we can edit our Nvidia settings from the Nvidia settings tool. Okay, so what should we install next? It looks like I don't believe we have any browsers installed. Yep. So we should probably do Firefox is always a good fallback. And then we'll go ahead and install Brave. But I believe we need the Arch user repository to install Brave. So Firefox is just a simple Pacman install. I chose the default fonts here, but I later on went back and installed the Microsoft fonts. So now we have Firefox. Went ahead and signed in. Don't want you guys to see my sign in. My password's a bunch of dots. All right, so I'm looking up how to install Yay, which any old Arch heads out there would remember Yowert. Yay is Yowert's now kind of defunct, I think, and everybody uses Yay. And the first thing we need to do to install that, I'll leave a link to this in the notes, but the first thing we need to do is we need to git because we need to clone their Git repository to our /opt folder. So that's what I'm doing here, copying and pasting that address. After that, it requires us to change the ownership of the folder that we just downloaded. So we're going to chown that -r for recursive, and it's going to be username. It's going to be Bo in my case, but it's going to be your username and group, and then that folder. We're going to change to that new directory, and then we're going to run the make package. So make pkg-si inside that directory, and then the rest is magic. I'm going to say yes to that without reading it because we're Arch users now. YOLO. The Arch user repository is really a fantastic thing that Arch has. I typically avoid it, but it's great to have whenever you need it because almost anything you can think of that has ever been invented that could possibly be installed on Linux, someone somewhere has made an Arch user repository package for it. So it's a really nice tool to have. I think the Arch user repository actually makes Arch easier to install things than other distros, depending on the application. It could be a lot easier to install on Arch. So I believe here yes. So we're installing Brave. And they have a few different versions, but if you just go to brave-bin, that's kind of the default Brave. And Yay works just like Pacman. So what I ran there was just a Yay-lowercase s and Brave, the name of the application. All right, so now we have two browsers. What more could you ask for? And we want to install OBS. So that I can actually record the screen and the font won't look fuzzy. So they have a Arch specific install line, OBS-Studio. I will warn you. So I ended up backing out this package after recording this video and opting for the flat pack version of OBS instead. You may not run into the same problem I did, but I use a very obscure webcam. It's like a homemade Raspberry Pi webcam, and this version of OBS didn't like it. So I installed the flat pack, which had no problem with it. All right, we're going to set up our capture, and then like magic, Let's see if we can. Ta-da! And we'll. I was gonna snap my fingers, but I put a fade on it. So we're gonna fade to the new screen capture, which looks much better quality. Too bad I couldn't do the whole video like this. Future videos I can. All right, so I'm just going through my Cinnamon setup, the way I kind of make Cinnamon look okay. I like to have my panel height at around 32. And I also like it on the top versus the bottom. And then I don't keep any of those shortcuts up there. So like your Firefox, your file browser, I unpin all these things. To me, it's just very like old school Ubuntu. Very GNOME, original GNOME. I don't know. Looks dated, so I always take them off. And then I install Plank. So we're gonna say pacman-s plank. Install that, and then I am of the left side panel for Plank camp. I know that a lot of people like it on the bottom, but you people are insane. It goes on the left. We'll match that same size for the icons. Go down to 32. Right here, I think I was like, is 32 going to be too much? Is it going to be too small? 32? But no, 32 is where it's at. It's where you want it. It's a sweet spot, baby. First thing I always do with a fresh Plank install is I go through and look at what applications I have installed right now by default, which isn't many, because when you install Arch, it is very blank. And so I'll just go through the menu and go ahead and add those to the panel. That's almost all you have on a fresh Arch install. Later on after this video, what I like to do is I go to the preferred applications, and then I go ahead and just use that as like a list of things I need to download, and I'll go find a mail application, a calculator. I find all this. I make sure there's something for all of those spots. So I'm going to change my background. You just saw me make my pictures folder there, and this is my background for my previous install, the Dungeons and Dragons Player Handbook 5th edition. I love that cover. It's a great wallpaper. It also inspires me not to spend all my time playing computer games whenever I can play tabletop games. So I'm looking at the system settings, the themes, and I don't have any, there's like hardly any, there's no themes installed basically. I could go to the add remove section here and, find something here that I like and then install it. But I already know what I want because I basically do the same install every single time. No matter what OS I'm using, it looks the same because I almost always install these theming. So we'll start with the Numix Circle. I always use Numix Circle. It's my go-to. All right, so turn that on. Perfect. Go ahead and switch to a dark theme, although this won't be the theme that we stick with. I like the mint themes. They're just designed to work great with Cinnamon, but I had to find them and where they would be in the AUR. So we're going to use Yay to install mint-themes. And then I want the one from Git. So I think that's number 2. Yes, number 2. Mint themes Git. This installs quite a bit because it's installing all the parts to every theme. Now that I think about it, I basically just make a Arch version of Linux Mint, which is pretty funny. All right, so we got those. So now we have all these Mint themes here. And I like the dark orange. Takes me back to my Geek Squad days. All right, all we have left to do is to finish up this theme. And that's it. This is where we're going to leave off this video. But I think if you think about it, we made a lot of progress here. So we went from a terminal on a thumb drive all the way to a fully installed modern dark themed Arch desktop. I think that is a lot of progress for under an hour, and from here you can build off of that. We'll work on installing Steam and getting it set up for podcasting and for gaming, because that is what we do. Check out Crowbar Kernel Panic, the podcast at the intersection of Linux and gaming, where Josh and I do a lot of goofing off. We talk a little bit about Linux news. We talk a lot about different games that we're playing and how they work on Proton. It's just a lot of fun. Tune into that, and also check out this channel for more Arch install videos. We'll continue to set this desktop up. I'm going to try to screen capture as much as I can, and we'll go through installation videos on the various things that I do on almost every build. This is like my bread and butter build. This is my comfort place. I always go back to this Cinnamon Arch install. This has been a few years now, the one that I go back to. I like changing a lot. I'm a vacationer. I love trying other distros out, but this is where I always go back. And thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Peace.